Jake Morrison stared at the recruitment office door for 10 minutes before he found the courage to walk inside. The glass building looked like every other government building he had ever seen, but this one would change his life forever. He had watched the news feeds for 2 years. Every time Commander Lisa Kane appeared on screen, Jake felt something stir inside him. She was not just another military officer. She was the Iron Angel, the woman who had saved 3 colonies from total destruction. While other commanders played it safe, Kane took risks that should have killed her entire crew. Instead, she won battles that everyone said were impossible. The recruitment sergeant looked bored when Jake sat down across from his desk. "Name and purpose," the man said without looking up from his computer. "Jake Morrison." "I want to join the pilot program. Any specific assignment requests?" Jake took a deep breath. "I want to be Commander Kane's pilot." Now the sergeant looked up. His eyebrows went up so high they almost reached his hairline. "Kid, do you have any idea how many people want that job? Kane picks her pilots herself. She has turned down 50 applicants in the past year." "I know," Jake said, "but I have been training for this for 2 years. I can fly anything with engines. I have logged more simulator hours than anyone in my age group." The sergeant pulled up Jake's file on his computer. His expression changed as he read through the scores. "These numbers are real?" "Yes, sir. You have perfect scores on every test, even the ones that are supposed to be impossible." The sergeant leaned back in his chair. "Why Kane? You could get any assignment you want with scores like these." Jake had practiced this answer many times. "Because she wins. Every battle, every mission, every impossible situation. Her crew comes home alive. That is the kind of commander I want to serve under." The sergeant studied Jake for a long moment. "Fine, I will submit your application. But do not get your hopes up. Kane has specific requirements for her pilots. Most people do not meet them." 3 weeks later, Jake got the call. He was accepted into the elite pilot program, and Commander Kane had specifically requested him for her crew. Jake could barely believe it when the words came through his communicator. 2 days later, he stood on the docking bay of the deep space cruiser Defiant. The ship was massive, bigger than anything Jake had ever seen up close. Its gray hull stretched out in both directions, covered with weapon ports and sensor arrays. "This was a warship built for serious business. Morrison," a voice called from across the bay. Jake turned to see a woman walking toward him. She was shorter than he had expected, maybe 5.5 feet tall. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform was perfectly pressed, but it was her eyes that caught his attention. They were steel gray, and they looked right through him like she could see every thought in his head. "Commander Kane," Jake said, snapping to attention. "At ease, pilot." Kane stopped in front of him and looked him up and down. "I read your file. Impressive scores. But scores do not tell me if you can handle real combat." "I am ready for whatever you need, ma'am." Kane smiled, but it was not a warm smile. "We will see about that. Follow me." She led him through the corridors of the ship. Everything was clean and efficient, but Jake could see signs of recent battle damage that had been repaired. Scorch marks on the walls, new welding where hull plates had been replaced. "The Galactic Council is not happy with me," Kane said as they walked. "They think humans are too aggressive, too unpredictable. They want to replace me with an alien commander who will follow their rules." "Why are they worried about human tactics?" Kane stopped and turned to face him. "Because we win battles that should be losses. We adapt when aliens follow their programmed responses. We take risks that their computer models say are suicide, and that scares them." They entered the pilot ready room. Kane pointed to a chair at a table covered with star charts and mission reports. "Sit down, Morrison. I am going to tell you why I picked you." Jake sat down and waited. "I have been through 50 pilot applications in the past year. All of them had good scores. All of them wanted to serve on a famous ship, but none of them understood what this job really means." Kane pulled up a chair across from him. "Your psychological profile shows something different. When you set your mind on a goal, you commit completely. You do not quit when things get hard. You do not second-guess orders when the situation looks impossible." "I trust good leadership, ma'am." "Good. Because I need a pilot who will follow me into situations that look like certain death. The aliens we fight have better technology and bigger ships. Our only advantage is that we can think our way out of problems they cannot imagine." Kane leaned forward. "The Galactic Council wants to fight wars like a chess game. Move pieces around the board according to rules everyone agrees on. But real war is not chess, Morrison. Real war is chaos. and humans are very good at controlled chaos. Jake felt a thrill run through him. This was exactly what he had hoped for when he watched Kane's battles on the news feeds. I understand, ma'am. What are my duties? You will fly my personal fighter when we need speed and stealth. You will pilot the shuttle when we need to get into places larger ships cannot go, and when the situation gets desperate, you will trust me to find a way out even when logic says there is no way. Kane stood up. Your first test comes tomorrow. We have received reports of strange ships near the outer colonies. The Council wants us to investigate using standard protocols. I have other ideas. She headed for the door, then stopped and looked back at Jake. One more thing, Morrison. The aliens we deal with have some unusual customs about partnerships and loyalty. Sometimes diplomatic requirements can get complicated. Are you prepared to adapt to unexpected situations? Jake nodded without hesitation. Yes, ma'am. Whatever it takes to complete the mission. Kane smiled again, and this time it looked almost approving. Good answer, pilot. Get some rest. Tomorrow we find out if you can really fly the way your scores say you can. After she left, Jake sat alone in the ready room looking at the star charts. He had gotten exactly what he wanted. Commander Kane had chosen him to be her pilot. He was part of the most elite crew in the Terran Space Command. He had no idea that his life was about to become much more complicated than he had ever imagined. Jake woke up to red emergency lights flashing in his quarters. The ship's alert system was blaring a steady tone that meant one thing: they had found trouble. He dressed quickly and ran to the bridge. Commander Kane was already there, standing in front of the main screen. The image showed 3 large ships that Jake had never seen before. They were dark red and covered with sharp angles that looked like weapons. Morrison, there you are, Kane said without turning around. Meet the Vorthak. They have been attacking civilian colonies for the past month. No one has been able to stop them. What do we know about them? Jake asked. Lieutenant Brown, the communications officer, looked up from his station. They do not respond to any diplomatic messages. They attack without warning and leave no survivors. The other alien species in the Alliance are trying to set up peace talks. Kane snorted. Peace talks with an enemy that kills civilians. The Council wants us to observe and report. They think the Vorthak will eventually agree to negotiate if we show them respect. Jake studied the enemy ships on the screen. Each one was twice the size of the Defiant, and their weapon ports were glowing with energy. What are your orders, ma'am? Kane turned to look at him. Her gray eyes had that look he was starting to recognize. She was about to do something that would either be brilliant or get them all killed. We are going to disable those ships, she said. All 3 of them. The bridge went quiet. Brown looked like he had stopped breathing. Ma'am, the tactical officer said carefully. Our orders are to observe only, and those ships outgun us 3-1. Our orders are to protect human colonies, Kane replied. Those ships are heading toward New Dallas. 50,000 people live there. The Galactic Council can file a complaint after we save those lives. Kane walked over to Jake. Think you can handle some creative flying, pilot? Jake felt his heart start beating faster. This was what he had trained for. What do you need me to do? I am going to download my tactical plan to your fighter. You will think I have lost my mind when you see it. The maneuvers I want you to perform should be impossible according to every flight manual ever written. Kane placed her hand on his shoulder. But I have watched you fly in the simulators. You do not think like other pilots. You see solutions where others see problems. Trust me and I will trust you. Jake nodded. I am ready. 20 minutes later, Jake was strapped into his fighter craft, reading Kane's battle plan on his display screen. She was right. Any sane pilot would refuse these orders. Kane wanted him to fly directly at the enemy ships, then execute a series of turns and rolls that would put tremendous stress on his ship and his body. Morrison, are you ready? Kane's voice came through his headset. Yes, ma'am. Beginning attack run now. Jake launched from the Defiant and accelerated toward the Vorthak ships. Immediately, all 3 vessels turned their weapons toward him. Energy beams lit up the space around his fighter as he weaved between them. Now, Morrison, execute pattern Alpha. Jake pulled his fighter into a dive that should have torn the wings off his ship. The gravitational forces pressed him deep into his seat, but he held on to consciousness and followed Kane's plan exactly. The first Vorthak ship fired a massive energy beam where Jake should have been. Instead, he was 50 meters below their target zone, flying upside down and backwards. Jake fired his weapons into the enemy ship's engine ports exactly where Kane had marked on the tactical display. The Vorthak ship lost power and began to drift. Pattern Beta, Morrison. Now Jake rolled his fighter in a corkscrew pattern that made his vision blur. The second enemy ship tried to follow his movements, but Jake was changing direction too quickly. Their weapons could not track him. He came out of the corkscrew directly above the ship's command center. Another precise shot into their power systems, and the second Vorthak vessel went dark. Outstanding work, pilot. One more, pattern Gamma. The third Vorthak ship was trying to retreat, but Jake was already moving to intercept. Kane's final maneuver was the most dangerous yet. Jake had to fly his fighter through the gap between the ship's main hull and its weapon pods, a space barely wide enough for his craft. At full speed, Jake threaded the needle. For 3 seconds, he was surrounded by enemy hull on all sides. If he had been off by even a meter, he would have crashed and died instantly, but Kane's calculations were perfect. Jake emerged from the gap and fired into the ship's reactor core. The third Vorthak vessel powered down and began sending surrender signals. Jake returned to the Defiant, his hands shaking from adrenaline. He had just done the impossible, and it had worked exactly like Kane had predicted. "Excellent flying, Morrison," Kane said when he reached the bridge. "Now we wait to see how the Vorthak respond to defeat." They did not have to wait long. A shuttle launched from one of the disabled ships and requested permission to dock. Kane agreed, and 10 minutes later 3 tall alien figures walked onto the bridge. The Vorthak were impressive creatures. They stood 7 feet tall, with thick armor covering their bodies and 4 arms each. Their faces were hidden behind metal masks, but their voices were deep and rumbling. "We are War Master Thok of the Vorthak fleet," their leader announced. "We have come to speak with the bonded warriors who defeated us." Kane stepped forward. "I am Commander Kane of the Terran Space Command. This is my pilot, Jake Morrison." The alien leader studied them both for a long moment. "You fight as one mind in 2 bodies. Your tactical thinking and his flight skill are perfectly matched. By the laws of our people, you are bonded warriors." Jake looked at Kane, confused. She looked just as puzzled as he felt. "What does that mean?" Kane asked. "Among the Vorthak, warriors who achieve perfect unity in battle are considered mated for life. You have proven your bond through combat. We recognize you as true partners." Lieutenant Brown made a choking sound. Kane's face went very pale. "We appreciate the honor," Kane said carefully. "But humans have different customs about partnerships." War Master Thok tilted his head. "Do you not fight together as one? Do you not trust each other completely?" "Yes, but that is professional respect, not—" "Then you are bonded warriors," the alien said firmly. "This is not a choice. This is recognition of what already exists." The Vorthak delegation turned and left without another word. Kane and Jake stood on the bridge in stunned silence. Brown was trying very hard not to laugh. "Ma'am," Jake said finally, "what just happened?" Before Kane could answer, her communicator beeped. A message from Galactic Council headquarters appeared on the main screen. "Commander Kane, we have received a diplomatic communication from the Vorthak fleet. They are requesting formal negotiations with the human bonded warrior pair that defeated their ships. This could be the breakthrough we need to establish peaceful relations. Prepare for immediate return to headquarters for diplomatic briefing." Kane closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Morrison," she said, "I think our partnership just became more complicated than either of us planned." Jake looked at the disabled Vorthak ships on the screen, then at Commander Kane. He had enlisted to be her pilot. He had not expected to become her bonded warrior, whatever that meant. But as he watched Kane begin planning their next moves with the same tactical brilliance she had shown in battle, Jake realized something important. He trusted her completely. If Kane said they could handle this situation, then they would handle it, even if he had no idea what they were getting into. "Ready for orders, ma'am," Jake said. Kane looked at him and smiled. For the first time since he had met her, it was a warm smile. "Thank you, Morrison. I think we are going to need each other more than we realized." The Galactic Council chamber was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Representatives from 12 different alien species sat in curved rows around a central platform. Each species looked completely different from the others. Some had tentacles instead of arms, others had scales or fur or metallic skin. Jake stood next to Commander Kane on the platform, trying not to stare at the various aliens watching them. 3 days ago, he had been a simple pilot. Now he was part of some kind of diplomatic ceremony that no one had fully explained to him. "Citizens of the Alliance," announced Council Speaker Vex, a tall blue creature with 6 eyes. "We are gathered to recognize the bonded warrior status of the human pair Kane and Morrison." This recognition will formalize their partnership under the laws of 6 member species. Kane leaned over and whispered to Jake, "Just follow my lead. Smile and nod when they talk to us. Do not agree to anything unless I agree first." The ceremony began with the Vorthak delegation. War Master Thok stood and spoke in his deep, rumbling voice. The Vorthak recognized these warriors as battle-bonded. They have proven their unity through victory against superior numbers. Let their partnership be sealed with the mark of honor. A smaller Vorthak stepped forward, carrying a metal rod that glowed with energy. Jake started to step back, but Kane caught his arm. "It is just a ceremonial mark," she whispered. "It will not hurt." The Vorthak touched the rod to Jake's forehead, then to Kane's. Jake felt a brief warm sensation, and then it was over. When he looked at Kane, he could see a small silver mark on her forehead that matched the one he now wore. The Zilani recognized this bond as one of shared purpose, announced a creature that looked like a walking tree. Let them demonstrate their unity of mind through the trial of coordination. 2 chairs were brought onto the platform, each with a complex control panel. Jake and Kane were directed to sit down. "This is a combat simulation," Kane explained quietly. "We control a virtual spaceship together. You handle flight controls, I handle weapons and tactics. The goal is to survive as long as possible against increasing numbers of enemy ships." Jake looked at his control panel. It was similar to his fighter controls, but more complex. He had never used this type of system before. "Ready?" Kane asked. "Ready." The simulation began with 3 enemy ships attacking their virtual vessel. Jake immediately began evasive maneuvers while Kane targeted their weapons. Within seconds, Jake could feel Kane's tactical rhythm. When she wanted to fire on a target, he automatically positioned their ship for the best angle. As more enemy ships appeared, Jake and Kane fell into perfect synchronization. Jake knew where Kane wanted him to fly before she said the words. Kane anticipated his maneuvers and had weapons ready to fire the moment targets came into range. The alien observers began to murmur among themselves. The simulation was designed to become impossible after 10 minutes. Most bonded pairs lasted 6 or 7 minutes before their coordination broke down. Jake and Kane lasted 23 minutes. When the simulation finally ended, they had destroyed 47 enemy ships and achieved the highest coordination score in the test's history. The chamber fell silent. Even the aliens who had seemed bored before were now paying attention. "Remarkable," said Council Speaker Vex. "In 30 years of this ceremony, no pair has scored above 90% coordination. You achieved 98%. Jake looked at Kane in surprise. He had felt like they were working well together, but he had not realized they were breaking records. The ceremony continued with rituals from 4 more alien species. Each one involved some form of commitment or bonding declaration. By the time they were finished, Jake felt like he had been through a week of training exercises. "The final element," announced Speaker Vex, "is the recording of this bond in the official records of all member species. This will grant you certain diplomatic protections and authorities in future negotiations." An alien that looked like a giant beetle began speaking in a language Jake did not understand. Kane looked confused too. "What is he saying?" Jake whispered. "I think it is some kind of legal declaration," Kane replied. "The translation device is not working properly." The beetle-like alien continued for several minutes, then handed Kane and Jake each a small crystal tablet. Jake could see strange symbols carved into the surface. "Sign your names at the bottom," Speaker Vex instructed. "This will complete the ceremony." Kane and Jake signed their names on the crystal tablets. The moment Jake finished writing, every alien in the chamber began making different sounds. Some clapped, others hummed, a few made clicking noises with their claws. "Congratulations," Speaker Vex said. "The ceremony is complete. You are now recognized as bonded warriors by all member species of the Galactic Alliance." As they left the chamber, Kane looked troubled. "Something about that final declaration bothered me. I want to check what we actually signed." 2 hours later, Kane appeared at Jake's quarters with a grim expression on her face. "Morrison, we need to talk." Jake invited her inside. Kane sat down at his small table and rubbed her forehead where the silver mark was still visible. "I had the legal department translate those tablets we signed," she said. "The ceremony we just went through was not just a diplomatic recognition." "What do you mean?" Kane looked directly at him. "According to Terran law, we just participated in a binding marriage ceremony. Those tablets were marriage contracts. The beetle alien was a legally recognized marriage official. Jake felt like someone had hit him in the stomach. We are married? As of 3 hours ago, yes. The Galactic Council arranged this on purpose. A married human couple has different legal status than two individual officers. It gives us certain protections and authorities that regular command structure does not provide. Jake sat down across from her. Commander, I do not understand what is happening here. Kane was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up at him with those steel gray eyes. Morrison, I need to tell you something. I did not choose you as my pilot by accident. What do you mean? I read the psychological profiles of every pilot who applied to my crew. Most of them wanted glory or adventure or a chance to be famous. You were different. Kane leaned forward. Your profile showed someone who commits completely to a cause he believes in. Someone who does not quit when things get impossible. Someone who will follow a leader he trusts into situations that logic says are suicide. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. You planned this? Not the marriage part, Kane said quickly. But I knew that working with me would require total trust and commitment. I needed a pilot who would not hesitate when I give orders that seem crazy. She stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars moved slowly past as the ship traveled through space. The human position in this alliance is fragile, Morrison. The other species tolerate us because we are useful in combat, but they do not respect us. They think we are too emotional and unpredictable to be trusted with real authority. Kane turned back to face him. This bonded warrior status changes that. It gives us legitimacy in their eyes. A human married couple working as a military team is something they can understand and respect. Jake thought about everything that had happened in the past week. The impossible battle maneuvers, the Vorthak recognition, the ceremony, and now this revelation about marriage. So what happens now? He asked. Kane sat back down. Now we figure out how to make this work. The marriage gives us certain legal protections and authorities. If we can prove that human emotional bonds make us more effective rather than less effective, it could change how the Alliance views our entire species. Jake looked at this woman who had just become his wife, without either of them planning it. 3 days ago she had been his commanding officer. Now she was his partner in ways he did not fully understand. But he realized something important as he watched Kane plan their next moves with the same tactical brilliance she brought to everything else. He trusted her completely. If Kane said the situation could work to humanity's advantage, then he would help make it work. What are my orders, ma'am? He asked. Kane smiled. For now, we learn to be the best bonded warrior pair in the Alliance. And Morrison? Yes, ma'am. You might want to start calling me Lisa when we are off duty. Married couples usually use first names. Jake nodded. Understood, Lisa. As he said her name, Jake realized that his life had just changed in ways he could never have imagined when he walked into that recruitment office. He had wanted to be her pilot. Now he was her husband, her partner, and part of something much bigger than either of them. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Jake woke up to the sound of explosions. The Defiant was shaking like a toy in the hands of an angry child. Emergency alarms were screaming throughout the ship. He rolled out of bed and grabbed his uniform. Through the small window in his quarters, he could see flashes of weapons fire lighting up the darkness of space. Lisa's voice came over the ship's communication system. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Enemy fleet has entered the New Austin system. Repeat, enemy fleet has entered New Austin system. Jake ran to the bridge. The main screen showed a sight that made his blood run cold. 50 Vorthak warships had appeared near the colony world of New Austin. Each ship was massive, bristling with weapons and armor. Status report, Jake said to Lieutenant Brown. The Vorthak fleet appeared 20 minutes ago. They ignored all diplomatic communications and began attacking the planetary defenses immediately. Lisa was standing at the tactical station, studying enemy positions. Where are the other Alliance ships? Commander Zeth of the Kristani fleet is requesting permission to withdraw, Brown reported. He says his ships are not designed for this type of battle. Admiral Vox of the Centauri Defense Force is asking for reinforcements before engaging. Jake watched Lisa's expression change. Her jaw tightened and her eyes took on that dangerous look he was beginning to know well. Open a channel to all Alliance ships in the system, she ordered. Channel open, ma'am. Lisa stepped forward. This is Commander Kane to all Alliance vessels. I am assuming overall command of this battle under bonded warrior authority. Any ship that attempts to withdraw will be reported to the Galactic Council for abandoning civilians under attack. Several alien voices began protesting over the communication channel. Lisa cut them off. New Austin has 50,000 human colonists. Children, families, people who cannot defend themselves. We are the only thing standing between them and total destruction. We will hold this line. She turned to Jake. Morrison, I need you in your fighter. We are going to try something that has never been attempted before. What are the orders? Lisa walked over to him and placed her hand on his shoulder. I need you to coordinate with the colony's mining operations. They have heavy equipment that we can use as weapons if we get creative. Jake felt his heart rate spike. You want me to fly into a planetary atmosphere during a space battle? I want you to turn a mining colony into a fortress. Can you do that? Jake looked at the tactical display. 50 enemy ships against 6 Alliance vessels and 1 human colony. The odds were impossible. But as he looked at Lisa, Jake remembered why he had wanted to serve under her command. She found ways to win battles that should be losses. I can do it, he said. 10 minutes later, Jake was flying his fighter toward New Austin while space battle raged around him. Vorthak ships were firing massive energy beams that lit up the darkness. Alliance ships were trying to stay alive long enough to return fire. Jake dove through the atmosphere and contacted the colony's mining chief. This is Morrison, from the Terran ship Defiant. I need to speak with whoever is in charge of your heavy equipment. This is Chief Martinez, came the reply. What do you need, pilot? How many mining laser platforms do you have operational? 12. But they are designed for cutting rock, not fighting warships. Jake was already studying the colony layout on his scanner. Chief, I need you to trust me. Can those lasers be aimed upward? Well, yes, but good. I am sending you targeting coordinates. Aim every laser at the positions I am marking and fire on my command. Jake climbed back into orbit and opened a channel to Lisa. Mining platforms are ready. What is the plan? I am going to use the Alliance ships as bait. When I give the signal, the Vorthak will be in perfect position for your surface attack. Jake watched the space battle develop. Lisa was maneuvering the Alliance ships in a pattern that looked like retreat. The Vorthak fleet moved to surround them just as she had predicted. Now Morrison, Jake gave the command to Chief Martinez. 12 mining lasers fired simultaneously from the planet's surface. The powerful beam struck 3 Vorthak ships that had moved into low-orbit position. The enemy vessels had not expected attack from below and were completely unshielded. 2 Vorthak ships lost power immediately. The third began to fall toward the planet's surface. Outstanding work. Lisa's voice crackled over the radio. Set up for pattern 2. For the next hour, Jake coordinated between space and surface. Lisa would maneuver enemy ships into position, and Jake would direct mining equipment to attack from unexpected angles. They turned asteroid mining charges into space mines, used ore haulers as ramming ships, and converted the colony's communication array into a targeting system. The Vorthak had superior technology and numbers, but they could not adapt to tactics they had never encountered before. Their computer systems were programmed for standard space warfare, not combat that involved entire planets as weapons. As the battle continued, Jake began to understand something important about human warfare. Other species followed rules and patterns that their enemies could predict. Humans made up new rules during the fight. Morrison, I need you for one final maneuver, Lisa called. There are 12 enemy ships left and they are trying to retreat. Can you stop them? Jake looked at his scanner. The remaining Vorthak ships were moving away from the planet, heading for the edge of the system where they could escape. What do you need me to do? The colony has a mass driver for launching ore shipments. Can you use it to fire something at the escaping ships? Jake contacted Chief Martinez again. Chief, what is the biggest thing you can load into that mass driver? We have ore containers that weigh 50 tons each, but the mass driver is not designed for precision targeting. It does not have to be precise. Just get me close. Jake flew his fighter alongside the massive ore containers as they launched from the planet's surface. Using his ship's weapons, he guided the containers toward the fleeing Vorthak ships like a shepherd guiding sheep. The enemy ships detected the incoming projectiles, but they were moving too fast to change course effectively. 3 containers struck enemy vessels, disabling their engines. The remaining ships found themselves trapped between Jake's improvised attack and Lisa's pursuing fleet. Suddenly, all Vorthak ships stopped firing. A communication signal came from their lead vessel. This is War Master Thok to the bonded warriors Kane and Morrison. We request honorable surrender. Your tactics have proven superior to our own. Jake returned to the Defiant to find Lisa on the bridge accepting the Vorthak surrender. The alien commander appeared on the main screen, his forearms raised in what Jake now recognized as a gesture of respect. Your coordination of space and planetary forces is beyond our understanding, War Master Thok said. No other species in the Alliance fights with such adaptation and creativity. We acknowledge your victory. After the communication ended, Jake looked around the bridge. The Alliance commanders who had wanted to retreat were now studying the battle records with expressions of amazement. Commander Zeth of the Kristani approached. Lisa, how did you coordinate so many different elements simultaneously? Our computer models show this battle should have been impossible to win. Lisa looked at Jake and smiled. Humans do not fight by computer models. We fight by trusting each other and adapting to whatever the situation requires. Admiral Vox nodded slowly. The emotional bond between you and your pilot allowed coordination that our separate command structures could not achieve. This is a new form of warfare. Over the next few days, Jake watched alien officers studying recordings of the battle. They were trying to understand how human emotional connections could be a strategic advantage rather than a weakness. They are beginning to see us differently, Lisa said as they stood on the observation deck, watching New Austin recover from the attack. How so? Before this battle, they thought human emotions made us unpredictable and dangerous. Now they are realizing that our emotions allow us to trust each other in ways their species cannot. Jake looked at the colony below. 50,000 people were alive because he and Lisa had learned to work together as perfectly as one person in two bodies. What happens next? He asked. Lisa turned to face him. Next, we prove that bonded warrior pairs can change how the entire Alliance approaches warfare. The Galactic Council is already talking about creating similar partnerships among other species. Jake thought about the impossible maneuvers they had performed together, the split-second timing that had saved the colony, and the trust that had made it all possible. So our marriage is becoming something bigger than just the two of us? Lisa nodded. Much bigger. We are proving that human-style emotional bonds can be a military advantage. If we can train other pairs to work like we do, it could change the balance of power in the Alliance. As Jake watched the stars above New Austin, he realized that his decision to enlist as Lisa's pilot had led to something he never could have imagined. They were not just husband and wife or commander and pilot. They were pioneers of a new way of thinking about warfare and partnership. Whatever challenges came next, Jake knew they would face them the same way they had faced the Vorthak fleet, together, trusting each other completely, and ready to adapt to whatever the universe threw at them. 6 months after the Battle of New Austin, Jake found himself standing in a shipyard unlike anything he had ever seen. The massive construction facility was building ships designed by humans and aliens working together. For the first time in Alliance history, different species were combining their technologies instead of keeping them separate. What do you think of her? Lisa asked, joining him at the observation window. Jake looked at the ship taking shape in front of them. The Unity was twice the size of the Defiant, with sleek human design elements combined with alien armor and weapon systems. But what made it truly special was the crew it would carry. She is beautiful, Jake said. Hard to believe we will be commanding a ship like that. Lisa smiled. The past months had changed her in ways Jake was still discovering. The intense, focused commander was still there, but she had become more relaxed around him. Their partnership had grown into something neither of them had expected when they signed those crystal tablets. Admiral Kane, a voice called from behind. Jake still felt a thrill when he heard Lisa's new rank. The Galactic Council had promoted her after studying the battle records from New Austin. They finally understood that human tactics were not chaotic. They were adaptive. Lisa turned to see Captain Rodriguez approaching with a datapad. Rodriguez was one of 12 human officers selected for the new bonded warrior training program. Admiral, we have completed the first round of partnership evaluations, Rodriguez reported. 8 of the 12 pairs achieved synchronization scores above 80%. Any problems with the alien participants? Lisa asked. A few. The Kristani have trouble with the trust exercises. Their culture emphasizes individual achievement over partnership. But the Zilani are adapting well. Their natural empathy helps them connect with human emotional patterns. Jake had spent the past month helping to design the training program. It was strange teaching other pilots to do what came naturally to him and Lisa. They had to break down their instinctive coordination into steps that could be learned. "What about the Vorthak volunteers?" Jake asked. Rodriguez grinned. "They are the best students we have. War Master Thok says that bonded warrior partnerships are exactly what Vorthak culture has been missing. 3 of his people have already achieved perfect synchronization with their human partners." After Rodriguez left, Jake and Lisa walked through the training facility. In one room, a human pilot and a Zalani navigator were practicing coordination exercises. In another, a Vorthak warrior and a human tactical officer were working through combat simulations. "It is working," Lisa said quietly. "The idea is actually working." Jake nodded. When they had first been declared bonded warriors, neither of them had understood what it would lead to. Now they were watching the birth of a new kind of military organization. They stopped at the final training room, where 2 humans were practicing the same exercises Jake and Lisa had mastered months ago. The pair was Lieutenant Adams and Sergeant Parker, both experienced officers who had requested bonded warrior training. "They are good," Jake observed, watching their coordination scores, "but they are still thinking too much about the techniques." "They will learn," Lisa said. "It took us time to develop true instinctive trust." Jake thought about that. When had their professional partnership become something deeper? He could not point to a specific moment. It had happened gradually, through shared challenges and small acts of trust that built into something unshakable. "Lisa," he said, using her first name as he had learned to do when they were alone, "can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think we would have become close if we had met under normal circumstances? Without the Vorthak recognition and the forced marriage?" Lisa was quiet for a moment, watching the trainees practice their maneuvers. "I do not know," she said finally. "We are both very focused on our careers. We might have remained professional colleagues and nothing more." She turned to look at him. "But I think the universe has a way of putting the right people together when they are needed. Maybe we needed the external pressure to discover what was possible between us." That evening, Jake and Lisa had dinner in their shared quarters aboard the Unity. Living together had been awkward at first, but they had gradually settled into a comfortable routine. They had separate sleeping areas, but shared a common space for meals and planning sessions. "I got the mission orders today," Lisa said over dinner. "Where are we going?" "Beyond the galactic rim. Long-range sensors have detected artificial signals from outside our galaxy. The Council wants us to investigate with the new mixed-species crew." Jake felt a familiar thrill. Another impossible mission. Another chance to prove that human adaptability could solve problems others could not handle. "How long will we be gone?" "Minimum 6 months. Possibly longer if we make contact with whatever is sending those signals." Jake nodded. 6 months in unexplored space with a crew of humans and aliens learning to work together. It would be the ultimate test of everything they had built. "Are you ready for that?" Lisa asked. Jake looked around their quarters. 6 months ago, this had been unimaginable. Sharing living space with the woman who had been his commanding officer. Planning missions as equal partners. Leading a new kind of military unit that combined the best of human and alien capabilities. "I am ready," he said. "We have come this far together. I trust you to lead us wherever we need to go." Lisa reached across the table and took his hand. It was a simple gesture, but it represented everything their partnership had become: trust, affection, and absolute confidence in each other's abilities. "Jake," she said, "I need to tell you something I should have said months ago." "What is that?" "When I chose you as my pilot, I thought I was just selecting the best candidate for a dangerous job. I had no idea I was choosing a life partner." Jake squeezed her hand. "Do you regret it?" "Never. What we have built together is better than anything I could have planned. We have proven that human emotional bonds can be a strategic advantage. We have changed how the Alliance views our entire species, and we have found something together that neither of us was looking for." The next morning, Jake stood on the bridge of the Unity as the ship prepared for departure. The crew was a perfect mix of humans and aliens, all trained in bonded warrior techniques. Each partnership had learned to trust completely and adapt instantly to changing situations. "All stations report ready," called Commander Adams from the tactical station. Her Vorthak partner, War Master Keck, nodded agreement from his position at the weapons console. "Navigation ready," reported Lieutenant Chen. Her Zalani partner, Harmony singer Vex harmonized a musical tone that indicated their shared readiness. Lisa took her position in the captain's chair. Jake moved to the pilot station, even though the Unity had a full navigation crew. Some habits were too important to change. Set course for the Galactic Rim, Lisa ordered. Maximum speed. As the Unity accelerated toward the edge of known space, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought them here. He had enlisted to be Lisa's pilot, never imagining it would lead to marriage, partnership, and a revolution in how different species could work together. Their wedding rings caught the light of distant stars as they prepared to face whatever waited in the vast unknown. Jake smiled, remembering his confusion when the Vorthak had first declared them bonded warriors. Now he understood what they had seen that day. Some partnerships were more than the sum of their parts. Some bonds created possibilities that could not exist alone. Ready for whatever comes next? Lisa asked from the captain's chair. Jake checked his instruments and looked out at the stars ahead. Somewhere beyond the rim of their galaxy, new challenges and discoveries were waiting. Whatever they found out there, he and Lisa would face it the same way they had faced everything else. Together, trusting each other completely. Ready, Jake replied. The Unity jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying its mixed crew toward mysteries that would test everything they had learned about cooperation, trust, and the power of emotional bonds to overcome impossible odds. Jake had wanted to be her pilot. Instead, he had become her partner in ways that changed not just their lives, but the future of human-alien relations throughout the galaxy. As the stars blurred past the view screen, Jake realized that the best adventures always began with destinations you never intended to reach, and the best partnerships grew from trust you never knew you needed. The Unity flew on toward the unknown, carrying hope for a new kind of cooperation between species, and proof that some bonds were strong enough to change the universe itself.